Students in the school, and we have clients that come in, and every once in a while they'll be in a breed trim, and the client says during the summer the dog's out in the yard, in the pond, whatever it is, take the coat off. I have all my students do the breed trim first. Doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to be perfect. It's coming off anyways, but just to practice your lines, just to stay up to date on where your correct angles should be and understanding those. It'll start to click, it'll start to make a lot more sense. If you are right-handed, think of the way the blade moves that your thumb is moving. Can everybody picture when you're moving your thumb, can you picture which blade moves and how it moves? It's important that if I'm scissoring this side of the dog, not the opposite side, that I'm scissoring from here to here. If you scissor from here to here, the blade that you're moving is pushing the coat away from you. If you scissor from the front into your tuck-up, the blade you're moving is lifting the coat into the blade. You'll get a much nicer finish. Does everybody understand that? How many of us have those little poodles that come in and they have a neck like this? And you look at them and think, wow, what were they doing? What happened to them? They got left out somewhere. But how do we emphasize and make those dogs have a little bit more neck? The tighter we can take it, if we use a 10 blade or a 15 blade, yesterday I was saying colors are important. If you have a white poodle, and if it's its first grooming ever, a puppy, say 5 months old, you can use a shorter blade, a 15 blade. In the show, you'd use a 40 blade to do this stuff. I don't know how many people show here, but everything in the show is usually done with a 40 or a 50 blade. But in pet grooming, that's way too much for any pet. It's going to cause a lot of clipper burns, sensitivity to the skin, irritation, and so forth. Using a 10 blade on your lighter color dogs, your reds, your apricots, your whites, a 15 blade on your darkers, your chocolates, and your blacks. But if you take a 10 blade, they should have a V. How many people have trouble putting the V in the correct spot? If you feel on yourself, you have a soft spot here right above your sternum. Everybody feel that real fast. The dog has the same exact thing. It should be about a finger above that when you set your V in. If you're wondering how far or how wide your V should be, can you picture, let's look at, picture a lab and that cowlick that's here on its neck. Everybody can picture that? That's where your V should be. If you can picture where the cowlick should be, then you can put the V in the correct spot. Now, a poodle doesn't have the cowlick, I know that, but we don't want to go past that cowlick in our mind. And just to maybe a finger above the soft spot here in our throat. We're on the subject of top knots. Yesterday I was talking for a few minutes about those floppy knots that come into the salon, those flop top knots, and you look at them and they fall every which direction, and we put as much product in and they just don't ever do anything at all. You can hand strip a little bit of that coat, pluck a little bit of coat out. Don't sit there and try to hand strip the shape to the top knot. Don't do that to the poodle. It's not fair to him or her. But pluck a little right down the center of the skull and a little bit more where the coat's parting. Don't pluck over here, but pluck more on the sides, I guess I would say. And 6 weeks later, you'll begin to see that top knot standing just a little bit more because that coat that we've stripped out is now shorter, and remember what stacking the coat is. It's now shorter and healthier and firmer. It's starting to hold that loose coat up a little bit more. Does that make sense with everybody?
Can you use thinning shears to do that?
You can, but I would prefer to pluck it because using thinning shears, we're not getting anything out of the hair follicle. We're just cutting it in half. So in order for us to get, her question was, can you use thinning shears to do what I was speaking of? I wouldn't, because if we're just thinning length off, we're not allowing any healthy hair to grow. And that's what we need. We need a new hair to grow in. And we'll just pluck it. Don't sit there and spend 10 minutes doing it. Maybe spend a minute and a half, 2 minutes doing it. My routine is I first do my pads. How many of us have doubles of blades here, like 210 blades or 240 blades or whatever it is? I'd suggest doubles of blades because blades get warm. We spend time trying to cool them. But what I like to do is I like to do my pads first. But when I'm doing my pads, I do my pads with a 40 blade, so it's a nice tight foot. Sometimes we used to do 15 blades or whatever it was, and I used to leave matting in the foot. But what I like to do is when I lift my foot up backwards this way, is I take my 40 blade slightly inside the toe. so I don't have to lift it up and go in this way. Now, a client never sees that, so all that leaves me is the top of the foot, basically. So I eliminate it really quickly with my pads. So I can do clean feet in about 7 to 8 minutes. And that's if the dog's a patient dog. You know, some of those poodles are, in my opinion, that's not fair to do to the dog, and I try to pick the owner's brain and see if we can leave it a little bit fuller. You know, because I don't think taking a chance at cutting a dog's foot is worth doing a clean foot. I don't think putting clean feet on a 12, 13, 14-year-old dog is worth it and fair to the dog. So it just depends on where you start. Like I said, I start on my pads and I work the 40 blade in between the toes from the bottom and get that all out of there, because the hardest time and the longest thing it takes me to do is to go in between my toes and get around those nails and everything. So if I start with my 40 when I'm doing my pad and just go in between it from the underside, I eliminate having to go in.